ReZero Starting Life in Another World web novel number 27, aka Arc 7 Phase 2, aka Crossdressing meets Emotional Damage, aka Vincent makes me question if I'm straight. And I don't know if you guys are hearing that, but that is the rain, and unfortunately I can't control the weather. Yet. So this isn't a really professional setup, I'm just a dude with a webcam that likes ReZero, so hopefully you guys don't hear it too much. Let's get right into it. These Arc 7 volumes have been very engrossing to read, but while I think that the core storylines are very strong, Arc 7 has had a bunch of puzzling writing decisions. My first reaction to volume 27 is overall extremely positive. I really like this volume. The Todd section in the middle of the book in particular was amazing. However, it had some things in the book that made me go, huh. The volume starts off by addressing my main question at the end of volume 26, which was, why would Subaru help Vincent retake the throne? Why would he do that? His biggest priority should be to leave this Game of Thrones-esque hellscape and peace out back to Lugunica, get Rem to safety, and get Louis in a cold, dark, perhaps unhygienic jail cell where she belongs. Subaru is in fact not interested in Vincent's machinations, and so he grabs Rem and Louis and leaves the Shudrak tribe, and okay, this makes sense. The fact that Subaru did not ask Mizalda for an ab workout is a huge missed opportunity, but I can roll with it. What I cannot roll with is that they went directly into the nearest city, which seems like a very foolish and naive thing to do. Not only is the trio of Subaru, Rem and Louis very conspicuous, they didn't even make any effort to hide their identity, which is very strange to me. It got me thinking if I missed some information, if they confirmed to have eliminated everyone back at the military camp, but even then, what if one of the members of the military camp sent a pigeon or whatever form of instant messaging you have in the world of ReZero, a media, I guess, if they have enough money for that. But what if they notified the other camps that they had a bit of a scuffle with a blue-haired girl and that they capture her alongside a child with learning disabilities and Louis as well? Subaru is self-admittedly not the smartest and does a lot of things by instinct, but it struck me as odd that even Rem didn't mention anything. This really did not come across as a 300 IQ move by Vincent, because I think even most of the readers could see this one coming. You don't just burn down an entire military camp and then wander into the nearest city without even trying to disguise your identity. Jumping into the city shenanigans now, I really like the new characters Flop and Medium. They're very nice and their personality gels super well with Subaru. And I think they stand out a lot because they're in Wallachia. In Lugunica they wouldn't have been as unique, however in Wallachia, where people value strength and might above all else, their personality really stands out, especially Flop. I would definitely say that we haven't had enough time with Medium yet to really get to know her. She's a very cheery, Genki type of character, but she's just sort of there in the background. But from what I've seen from Flop, I really like the dude and he's hilarious. When Subaru keeps up his method acting, if you can even call it that, and Flop is just there absorbing all the information like he's just learning so much, the dude is really funny. No cut corners in places outside the public eye is what you're saying. As expected, husband-kun. No, Miss Natsumi, I'm learning a lot. Flop is very goofy and aloof, but he's also very perceptive. He quickly realized that Vincent was a person of note, and even then he didn't back off, so you can see that he has a spine. However, while Flop was hit by the Emperor's dreadful aura, even in a land of wolves, sheep also live. If wolves were to come bite my buttocks, I would ride my ox cart and run away with my sister. I've repeated that over and over till this day, Village Chief Kun. You can see that Flop has skills of his own. Even if they don't quite match the standard of Wallachia, he is still a citizen of the land of the wolves, and he won't back down easily. He is a super nice guy, he has a hot, tall sister, so while he may call Subaru husband-kun, for many out there, he is the perfect brother-in-law. And speaking of brother-in-law, I have to mention this, Jamal is wilding in this volume. I'll get to the cross-dressing in a bit, but but Jamal is out here grabbing Subaru by the neck, making lewd comments, grabbing Vincent's face, and I'm so waiting for the moment where he discovers that he just grabbed the face of the Emperor of Wallachia. That is something that I definitely want to be called back in a later volume. I don't think the author will waste the absolute comedy goldmine that is that scene. And at one point, Subaru strangely shook his butt at Jamal, which, okay, this is the most manly volume up until now. Just a bunch of boys being boys, just dudes being bros. Have you never cross-dressed and shook your cheeks at your homie? That's just straight dude things. The Rem shipping may have slipped away and Emilia may be too far for now, but if all else fails, I think Jamal is currently the best candidate for best girl. Jokes aside, I really like Jamal and Todd's dynamic in this volume. Jamal is clearly the stronger of the two. He messed up Medium, he was going to mess up Subaru's behind, and still, while being stronger, he recognizes that Todd is more intelligent and more conscientious, so he sort of outsources the thinking part to him. Todd leads and Jamal begrudgingly follows. I really like the end of the volume, where Todd clearly analyzes the situation and sees it's a losing battle, and while Jamal may have some complaints about that because of his pride as a warrior, he recognizes that Todd is right and the smartest decision is to just leave. And speaking of Todd, man, this guy does not have the creepiness factor of Elsa and the other archbishops, but he is quickly growing to become one of my favorite villains in ReZero, and trust me, that's a high bar because ReZero has a lot of great villains. My favorite scene in this volume, if you can even call it a scene in a book, but you get my point, is the Todd Rampage. It is one of my favorite loops ever in ReZero. It is short but very intense. They used this gimmick initially all the way back in Arc 5, where Subaru gets reset to a point that gives him very little time to change his situation. However, I think here was executed way better. It feels so claustrophobic to read this, like the walls are just closing in and no matter what Subaru does, Todd always gets him. You feel the increasing desperation and anxiety from back to back to back to back resets. And what I love about Todd is that he cannot be reasoned with or persuaded, he's just too logical for that. Todd has decided that Subaru is a threat and so he eliminates him in the most efficient way possible. No gloating, no evil speeches, no arrogance, all flaws that Subaru exploited against, for example, the archbishops in the past. Todd has none of that. Todd just decides what he has to do and executes it in the most cold, simple way possible. Todd is the perfect rival for Subaru and the hard counter to RBD, because he will not let Subaru gain any new information. I think it's clear by now that this isn't the last we're going to see of Todd, and without making any hasty judgments, he's the GOAT! Okay, for real now, I think that judging by the story direction and by the fact that Subaru is literally helping the actual Emperor of Wallachia, I think that at some point Todd will become a reluctant ally. However, I really hope we keep this dynamic for a bit longer because Todd is a tremendous villain. And another thing that makes him great is that he's totally justified. In his eyes, Subaru is the villain. And, you know, perhaps burning an entire bar down and striking down innocent people isn't totally justified, but the man is on a schedule and he has to keep it. Now, I'll stop hyping up Todd for a bit to talk about a scene that I really didn't like, which was when Todd met Natsumi Schwartz and did not recognize her or him. I really didn't like this scene at all. I'll get to the cross-dressing right away, but as silly as that was, I think this scene specifically was a massive mistake for Todd's character. Even if they managed to fool everybody, I don't think you can have Todd, the guy you've been building up as hyper-observant and extremely paranoid, have a literal conversation with Subaru and not recognize him. I just think it's off character. If Todd didn't have a goated scene in this volume, I would say that this conversation really hurt his stock. And not all is bad, there are elements in this scene that I like, for example Subaru having to very carefully choose and police his own speech because he can't lie to Todd because he knows Todd will pick it up, so he has to sort of bend the truth where it is convenient for him and not reveal anything. I think that was pretty well done. I quite enjoyed the dialogue, but I just don't think it makes sense for Todd to talk to Natsumi Schwartz and not give him the loving embrace of a steel axe. So I'm really hoping that this scene is cut from the light novel because to me it's an overall negative for Todd's character. Okay, now let's address the whole cross-dressing bit because I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. For a fantasy series with magic, dragons, elves, lollies that are hundreds of years old, perverted clowns that fly through the air and shoot fireballs, this is by far the most that ReZero has ever pushed my suspension of disbelief. You can't just put makeup on and magically transform into the opposite gender, especially because this isn't even good makeup, it's just rudimentary stuff they have in the middle of the jungle, in the Shudrak village. This isn't even the good stuff that comes from South Korea or whatever people get their good makeup from. I really know nothing about makeup, guys, but bear with me here. I'm not an expert, but I find it hard to believe that you can just lipstick your way into everybody believing you're a girl. I don't think it works that way. For example, in a different series, which hopefully some of you watched, namely The Apothecary Diaries, there is a scene very similar to this one, and there it works. Why does it work there and not here? In Apothecary Diaries, there's this character called Jinshi, and there's a scene that was sort of a joke where they disguise him as a girl and he actually looks pretty good. But the point there is, Jinshi as a character is known to have a very young, beautiful, androgynous face. He is even revealed, mild spoilers I guess, at some point to be taking things to really block his male features from coming out. So there it makes sense because his character is known to be very beautiful and could easily pass off as a girl. Now with Subaru, yes, he has his mother's scary eyes, but he's never been described as anything else but the average dude, so I don't know how this would work. Flop based on his character design and personality, I could see it working, sort of, perhaps. In Vincent, yes, he is also very beautiful, has very regal features, but according to Wikipedia, he's like 26 years old, so his male features should have come through, and maybe this is just my personal headcanon, but I always imagine Vincent as a very arrogant, Chad-looking dude. Are you picturing the same picture that I am? I just have a hard time seeing him disguised as a girl. It's hard for me to believe. I don't know, this whole plot point to me feels mega silly, and it's clearly something that the author really wanted to write, and to be quite honest, I love ReZero, so whatever helps him get past writer's block, just let the dude flow, let him cook, I'm all for it, but thematically speaking, in the arc of The Land of the Wolves and in ReZero as a whole, this feels way too comical of a plot point, but I don't know. Leave it in the comments. Do you think it's silly? Am I being too harsh? Let me know. To be clear, it's not all bad. I like in the storyline that they took advantage of one of the general's clear major weaknesses. I like that they have Vincent on their side, which is a major boon because he has massive knowledge about the country's military, so that felt smart. I really like that the tactic was in itself so outrageous that even Todd was blown away that Subaru would have the balls to pull it off. It's very clearly one of those moments where Subaru's way of thinking is incomprehensible to people in this world, especially Wolakian people who value might and strength above all else. I also like the parallel that apparently this is something that happened in real-life Japan, so the history lesson is nice. I just think that there's a difference between disguising yourself as a woman and striking out of nowhere and actually acting and performing as a woman and seducing guards that are on high alert against a tribe of women. So, I don't know. Now, speaking of professional makeup artist Subaru, I'm really enjoying his growing relationship with Rem. There's still a lot of tension between the two, and even if Rem doesn't fully trust Subaru, she's starting to care for him, even if she can't quite rationalize it, deep down she knows it. She has a weird affection and almost admiration for Subaru's feats that is very reminiscent of their previous relationship. Despite the fact she was not supposed to possess any memories, she stared at him with the eyes she had when she did, as if she believed that Natsuki Subaru could reach the answer that others could not reach. Memories or not, it seems that Subaru's self-sacrifice and unwavering determination is always going to connect with Rem. Memories or not, Rem is destined to be in Subaru's friend zone. Rem even outright admits by the end of the volume that she was worried for Subaru, so things are looking up. And not only is this very entertaining, the rebuilding of their relationship is also a nice parallel, for example, for Julius and Anastasia, who are also currently, hopefully, rebuilding their relationship. So, much like we learned in Arc 6, while memories may come and go, people are more than that and so are their connections. Having said all this, I have to address the Oni in the room, which is, why hasn't Subaru told Rem everything yet? I am losing my mind, screaming at a PDF document. It doesn't make any sense. After saying that, Subaru wondered if he should have been more patient, but he immediately told himself that this was the correct decision. Of course it's the correct decision, I don't even know what he's thinking. Maybe this is particularly strange for me because I'm just a yapper and I'm too honest and often too blunt, which can cause problems with people, but I would have just told Rem everything and it doesn't make any sense as to why he doesn't. From his awful first impression, Subaru has already damaged his relationship with Rem probably as much as he could. By telling her the truth, worst case scenario, she doesn't believe it, which is already the situation you're in now. Best case scenario, she does believe it and she starts to see where Subaru is coming from and why he's so distant towards Louis, all that stuff. Mid case scenario, she doesn't believe all, but she believes a little bit of it and maybe it gets her thinking. Looking at it from a logical perspective, it seems to me that there's nothing but upside to Subaru telling the truth to Rem, so why doesn't he do it? I don't understand this storyline at all and it's driving me nuts. At one point he says that he's waiting for her to ask, which if she asks, then maybe that means that she's more inclined to believe him, but I think the reverse is also true. If he tells her things that she instinctually knows to be true, she will start to believe him more. This whole keeping Rem in the dark and telling nobody about Louis, the ticking time bomb archbishop of gluttony that is going around laking people, I don't know, to me this is the most puzzling writing decision in arc 7 and to me the current biggest flaw in this arc. Getting back to the good stuff though, I love Subaru's dynamic with Vincent, it's just so entertaining. I'll probably offend you if I say this, but I think I'll just barely be an even match if we both win at it. It's impossible for me, I don't think I will ever be able to become like you. Naturally, you nor anyone else would be fit to be my substitute. I love their bickering back and forth, I love how Subaru is so honest and even despite knowing that Vincent is the Emperor, he's just himself anyway and he doesn't care. In this very volume there is a scene where Subaru punched Vincent and I was howling, that was a great scene, I love these two. Subaru is too naive and that clashes with Vincent's personality, but I think that Vincent is also helping Subaru mature. Up until now, Subaru mostly fought witch beasts and archbishops, which are irredeemably evil, there's not much of a gray area there. But if Emilia wants to be queen and if Subaru wants to be her knight and be there beside her and support her, he has to be able to handle and make tough decisions. Subaru deep down knows that you can't always save everybody and he has a very hard time with that. In this very volume, at one point he considered using RBD to save the soldiers but decided against it. Yes, Vincent is a major jerk, but he's very pragmatic and he often thinks about the big picture like a ruler should, something that Subaru is often unable to do. Despite them being polar opposites and clashing a lot, I love that there's major respect between the two. In the scene in particular where Subaru was explaining his outrageous and ridiculous plan, Vincent was the first one to understand him and the only one to actually be taking him seriously. Vincent thinks that Subaru is a softie and he's right about that, but he also understands that he's very reliable and his unorthodox way of thinking can be very useful. Overall, I'm really enjoying these first two volumes of Arc 7. I particularly enjoy the dynamic between Subaru and Vincent, which, judging by some of your guys' comments, that is not the case for everybody, and I can see how not liking Vincent would greatly affect your enjoyment of this arc, but up until now, to me, it's been great. I really like Vincent, and I think that he is in every way an upgrade over Priscilla. And speaking of his little sister, she just comes out of nowhere at the end of the volume. Where did she come from? How did she get here? How did she know they were there? Is she even still in the race for Queen of Lugunica? Is she going to try and take over Wallachia? So many questions. Once again, right at the end, ReZero manages to grab your interest with massive boobies. Cliffhangers. I meant cliffhangers, just Priscilla got me distracted. And totally random because it hasn't come up, but can Subaru use Corleones with Vincent and the people of Shudrak? I don't think he can use it with Vincent because I don't think Vincent truly trusts anyone, but can he use it with the people of Shudrak? Because thematically they would love that ability and it's such an OP ability, I'm really wanting to see it again. Anyway, this has been it for me today folks, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao!